Hey, everybody. Good afternoon. Welcome to another installment of Sharpening Your Skills. That's what we're going to be calling this from now on, guys. It's called Sharpening Your Skills. Ari Mentor presents. And today we have a fantastic presentation for you. Today's presentation we're calling this the COVID-19 underwriting guideline, and that's with some of you may already know who he is, Faridun Safar, and he's going to explain who he is and what he does. But fantastic real estate investor and educator. So he's here to help you guys out as far as underwriting in the COVID-19 era. So like I said, the presentation is about 30 minutes. And once it's over, Faridun and myself, we'll be back to take any questions that you may have. So the only thing I ask you to do right now is write down your questions and write them down during the presentation, and then we'll be back to answer those questions. So don't forget, all you have to do is just hit the raise your hand button. I keep forgetting that, but make sure you hit that raise your hand button. And then once you hit the raise your hand button, you'll be in the queue, and then we'll queue you up for your questions. So let's not wait any longer. Let's get this 30-minute presentation. And like I said, if you have any questions at the end, we will be back on to answer your questions and to get you guys in the queue. All right. So enjoy. Thank you. Bye. I'll be right back.
Hi, my name is Faridun Safai, and since COVID-19 started, I've been thinking that how we should underwrite going forward, and I put some thoughts together, some material together on these slides, and I want to share with you. Today is 11th of May, 2020. Let me give you a little bit about my background. My name is Faridun Safai. I worked in high tech for 32 years in Northern California. I retired 3 years ago. I moved to Southern California, to Orange County. My city is Laguna Niguel in Orange County, in order to be close to my 2 children and my 2 granddaughters. I've married for 49 years. This year in September would be 50 years. And based on the current environment, we have to think about what we're going to do. Anyhow, I joined the Ari Mentor coaching program in 2015. I've invested in real estate in single family since 1989 and multifamily in 2004. 3 years ago when I retired, Jeff asked me if I want to teach immersion training. And I said I'd be honored, and I've been teaching immersion training since 3 years ago. And the last 2 that I taught were early March, one in Seattle and one in Los Angeles. Let's go to next page. Let's talk about the unemployment. That's the major one that I want to talk on this slide. One is that the labor force has a definition that includes the people that are employed and the people that are unemployed. In US, in February 2020, we had about 165 million people as part of the labor force. 3.5% of it was unemployed, which was about 6 million people. So unemployment into February 2020 was 3.5%. The highest rate of unemployment has been in Great Depression in 1933, and it was about 25%. So just imagine that if 25% of 164 million people, that if they are unemployed, that's about 40 million. Just in case. I hope that doesn't happen, but that's something to keep in mind. In 2007 and 8, that the housing bubble that burst, unemployment increased to 10% in October 2009. Last month, April 2020, the unemployment was reported by Bureau of Labor Statistics was 14.7%. So it is good to keep in mind, just keep these unemployment to have a good perspective. So in 2009, it was 10%. Last month was 14.7%. And in 1933, that has been the highest unemployment, 25%. However, one thing that is very important to keep in mind is that real estate is a localized business. I hope that these unemployment stories do not discourage any of us. So just basically what we have to do, just any market that is good, just we check it out, and go buy properties there, okay? This graph shows all of those unemployment in graphical form. Last month, 14.7% unemployment. 2009, about 10%. And in 1933, in Great Depression, was about 25%. Okay, so let's just talk about the market choice. We know that there are primary markets, secondary market, and tertiary markets. My suggestion is that focus on the primary market. Secondary market is okay, but definitely ignore the tertiary market these days. Avoid any markets that have leisure and hospitality, hotels, industries like Las Vegas. Avoid any industries with energy, like any markets with energy industries like Houston. So for the time being, just you want to ignore these two. But however, some people want to, when they are at the bottom, they can buy good stuff and then ride it when it is going up. But for now, just we should not go after these two markets, two types of markets with these industries. Good markets, anywhere that is healthcare and bioscience, these things are pretty good. Walmart and Amazon, if they are present, it is good because those people are working and they are hiring. One thing, my suggestion is that any market that you're going to consider, make sure no industry takes more than 20% of the job. In the past, I would have been advocating 25% is okay, but going forward, I want to be more conservative, so with lower risk. So any market that I go, I do not want that any industry takes more than 20% of the job. And how to do that, you can do it from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. I'm suggesting that we focus on buying B properties in B and A areas. For now, A properties in A areas if the cash flow is okay. But ignore C properties in C areas for the time being. Because C properties, the tenants for C properties are the people that are going to lose their jobs first. So when we are at the bottom of the market, probably that's a good time to go after the C markets, C properties. But for the time being, you want to ignore them. One thing is that how to get the properties that we say B properties in A areas, B areas. So there is this tool RE indicator that gives this classification of the neighborhoods block by block in US. My suggestion is that if you have this tool, use it. If you don't have it, you can call the office and get it, because that will help you a lot on which market to focus, because you have all the neighborhood classification, just you have to buy properties in that neighborhoods. Excuse me. Okay. As you guys know, the lenders put a reserve requirement for P&I, principal and interest. They want to upfront that reserve. So Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, they have 6 months to 18 months range, that's the range for P&I reserve. And of course, it is based on DCR, debt coverage ratio. So the best way is that you find out what it is for your market and your property that you are underwriting, contact with your mortgage broker. If you know Eric Stewart, contact him. If you're not, you can call the office and get his contact information. My suggestion is that to underwrite with 12 months of P&I. And the question is that where to put that in your underwriting for this reserve. Put it in the closing cost order. Closing cost order, there are a lot of items part of it, but this reserve requirement, just add it to there. Couple of tips. Lender might return this reserve after a year if your property performs properly. So if they return, the question is that what you're going to do with it. You can return it to your investors, or you can invest it into your property. However, whatever that your intent is, you have to put it in your PPM so your investor to know, because you have to be open, upfront what your plan is to do. One thing is that if you have a SEC attorney, that's great. Contact him or her. But if you don't, you can contact Kim Taylor. Kim Taylor, you can get her contact information from the office, and it is a good idea to have a good conversation these days with your SEC attorney. Another thing that to keep in mind, be aware of it, whenever the lenders are going to drop this reserve requirement. Whenever this reserve requirement is dropped, so you don't need to include it in your raise in your underwriting. So your raise is going to reduce and your return is going to get better. Just keep that in mind. Next item, vacancy and concession non-payment. As you guys know, when we underwrite for a property, we look at three vacancies for that property. One vacancy is the property vacancy, or we call it T12 vacancy. Another vacancy that we consider is the market vacancy. And the third one, we call it the lender minimum 5% vacancy. So basically what we underwrite based on the highest of these three in our underwriting when we do, okay? Now, CBRE in early February, they are estimating, there was a report by them, they're estimating that the overall vacancy is going to increase by 2.7%, just say about 3% by Q3 of 2020. So it is a good idea that to add 3% to whatever vacancy that you are underwriting, so to be basically less risky way that to go forward. One thing that also I put here is that where to get the market vacancy. The people that have attended immersion training, we share with you guys there that how to get it, but people that are not familiar with it, just you can go to ALN data. On the top right, you can choose market reviews. And then after that, you can choose monthly market reviews. ALN recently added quarterly market reviews. My suggestion is just use the monthly only. And the good thing with this resource is that, first of all, it's free. Second is that right now we are in May. If you go get the market vacancy for your property, the market vacancy is going to be as of last month, end of last month. For example, today we are in May. If you go get the market vacancy for your property, for your market, that's going to be as of end of April. By the way, ALN gives the market occupancy, and then you subtract that from the 100 and you get the market vacancy. Another item that we should talk about is concession non-payment. What should be the concession non-payment for the next 3 to 6 months? My guess is that that is going to drop, but how much, that is a good question. The next one that we want to talk about is the rent. What we were doing in our 5-year projection in the past, we're assuming that our rent is going to increase 3% per year, every year, and our expenses is going to increase by 2%. Rent by 3%, expenses by 2%. But there was a report by CBRE early April that the rent is going to drop by 7% in Q4 of 2020, okay? So, and also, so almost 7%, 6.7%, they said. So about 7% by Q4 is going to drop. And another thing that just they were saying, the rent recovery is going to take till 2022. So Q2 2022, just almost 2 years from now before to come to where we are. So this is their estimate. So my suggestion is that when you do your underwriting, so keep in mind that for year one, use 7% rent drop and 0% rent increase for year two. And then after that, it is okay to use 3%. Okay, so this is slide just talking about do not use upgrade value add strategy. What we have been doing in the past, just we were after properties that they have any value adds, and especially any upgrade that we can do. Just give you an example. For example, a property that it costs $4,000 per unit to upgrade and get $100 rent increase. Now, if the rent is not going to increase because we cannot increase the rent, how we're going to do the upgrade? So it is better that these upgrades not to be considered, okay? That's just a suggestion. Next one. On this slide, I'm talking about the utility reimbursement, T3, trailing 3 months, T12, trailing 12 months, rent roll, exit cap rate. I have one slide for one paragraph, one bullet for each of these items. First one, utility reimbursement. My suggestion is that do not increase utility reimbursement for the next 5 years. The reason is that, just let me give you just an example from the past. In the past, there were some properties that the utility reimbursement was at around 60%. We could take those properties and increase it to 80, 85%. Or if they didn't have any utility reimbursement and the market was bearing it, we were adding utility reimbursement. But right now, don't do that, because the reason is that based on that, there is no utility reimbursement. The reason is that if people are not going to be able to pay rent, now if you do the utility reimbursement, you may lose your tenants. The suggestion is that do not consider it. The next one, T3 analyzed. We were using in the past, if the rent was going up, we were using T3 analyzed. And the lender were doing it also, okay? Lender were allowing us to do it. But now that the rent is going down and might go in the next couple of years, so we should not do that. So just use T12. And even it is better that to wait what your rent is going to be in May, June, and July, use those numbers. And the next bullet, T12, carefully look at, the T12, what your T12 is going to be for May, June, and July. The same also look at carefully for the rent roll for May, June, and July. So for example, if you all early June, you can get the rent roll as of end of May, and also get the T12 as of end of May, and then compare and to see that how the rent has dropped, how the concession on payment is playing. So those are very important that to analyze and check. And the last item on this slide, exit cap rate. So exit cap rate is the cap rate that we are going to use 3 to 5 years when we are going to sell the property, so to use. So the question is that what should we use for exit cap rate? So suggestion is that use whatever the current market cap rate is, add 1.5% to it. 1 to 1.5%, my suggestion is to add 1.5%. Where to get the current market cap rate? Of course, your brokers are a good resource, but also you can get current market cap rate. Just you can Google CBRE cap rate survey, and you can get it. CBRE does a survey of the cap rate and publish it, and it is free. They publish it twice per year. And also they give this cap rate for A property, B property, C properties. They give it for all types of property, multifamily, office, all kinds of property, but we are interested in the multifamily. There are 4 pages for multifamily that I always print them and I have them with me. So to check the cap rate for any market that I'm interested in. Okay, go to next page. Let's talk about the down payment and interest-only loan. Usually we have been underwriting 25%. These days you may want to underwrite continue 25% or 30%. In the past we were underwriting 20%. Actually 6 months ago we were underwriting 20%, but you had to have an exception to get 20%. So basically the lenders have been tightening up. But anyhow, these days, right at 25% to 30%, best way is that to check it with your mortgage broker, like Eric Stewart, to see based on your market and your property what you should use for your down payment. Another one, my suggestion is that do not use interest-only loan these days. First of all, let's see that why why we have been using the interest-only loan in the past. When we underwrite with the interest-only loan, our debt service is going to go down. But however, the reason that we do this is that in the future, we have the upgrade value add, and we implement that one and our rent goes up to compensate for that when the IO years is going to convert to 30-year amortized. And so when that happens, so we can compensate. But however, since we are not going to have any units to be upgraded, so we should not use interest only these days. My suggestion is that don't use it, even if your lender is giving you. Okay, excuse me, let me get some water. Okay, this topic is break-even occupancy. You want to find out what your break-even occupancy is for your property. Let me give you an example here. This property is 97 units. Gross scheduled rent is 990,000, GSR 990,000. Total expenses 459,000. Debt service 279,000. In order to find what the break-even occupancy is, just add up the expenses with the debt service divided by GSR, gross scheduled rent. And on this property example is 74.4%, just rounded up to 75%. What does this 75% means? It means that if I take 75% of the 97 unit, will be 73 units. So it means that I have to have the 73 units occupied, rented, without any rent drop in order to cover my expenses. So that is the meaning of it. What is a good break-even occupancy? It is a good one is 65% to 75%. So 75% and below is good. Or sometimes 77% also is good. 77% or below is good. Anything over 80% is risky. So now, if we are going to be in an environment that the vacancy is going to drop by 3% and the rent is going to drop by 7%, so what you should do, my suggestion is that you want your economic occupancy does not go below the break-even occupancy, okay? So let me give you an example on this property. So the vacancy currently 7%, concession non-payment 2%. So if you add them together, 7 and 2, 9% is your economic vacancy. You want to find out what your economic occupancy is, just subtract 9 from 100%, so it will be 91% is going to be your economic occupancy, okay? Now, if it is going to drop 10%, it means that 3% for vacancy, 7% for rent drop. Just assume the 7% rent drop is concession non-payment, so basically 10%. So economic occupancy is going to drop from 91% to 81%. So your break-even occupancy is 75%. So versus that, so still you are okay, okay? My suggestion is that read this page 50 from Multifamily Million book by David. And there it has an excellent discussion about the break-even occupancy. In that context, it's talking about the repositioning of a property. For example, if you take a property at 65% occupancy and say that your break-even occupancy you calculate is, say, that 75%, so you have to increase from 65 to 75. So they have 10% gap, and you have to calculate that how long does it take you to fix that gap, because that takes you money to run the operation, to upgrade. So you want to make sure that you have enough money. But one thing that is important to consider is that if a property is a repositioning property at 65%, when you take it over, you're going to lose another 10% to get rid of the undesirable on that property. So your occupancy may drop to 55%. So then from 55% to your break-even occupancy go to 75%, for example, that's going to be a big gap. So you have to have enough money and resources to do that. Please read that section of the book. It is an excellent one to educate yourself about the break-even occupancy. Okay, so now the question is that if you're going to write a LOI, how to protect ourselves, with basically the rent is going to drop, the vacancy is going to go up. So how we should protect us? So one way, of course, is that to specify that seller agrees to certain cap rate and or certain NOI. So basically, however, what you do, I have a suggestion just I want to give to you guys here. One thing that you guys know, that NOI, we know that is income minus expenses. We know that income is going to go down. Presumably, expenses should not go down. But however, these days, operators they do essential work. So they are not doing all the required expenses. So that way your expenses might go down. So if income is going down, expenses is going down, then your NOI might not change that much. So anything that is related to NOI to use, it might not be good. My suggestion is that to use economic occupancy. Economic occupancy, so if you use that one in your LOI, and just the seller maintain it through the close. So that is a good idea to do. Let me just give you an example here. Economic occupancy, as you guys know, it is gross scheduled rent minus vacancy minus concession non-payment. So here 100%, 7% vacancy, 2% for concession non-payment. So economic occupancy is going to be 91%. So what you can say is that seller agrees that to economic occupancy to be over 90%, for example, when you close. So every month you can check on that. And in case if they do not maintain it, that the economic occupancy that you put in your LOI, so you can retrade or you get back off. Okay, let's talk about what you should have for cash on cash return at acquisition. Excuse me. Okay, usually we use the Holy Trinity, 12% cash on cash return. That's what we use. But one thing that I just wanted to give you these days, I have from my notes from a multifamily million that I attended in 2015. Also, this information is in a case study in the Mastery website. The case study is Somerset or Somerset with U or O. It is both used there. So you can go there and this information is there. But let's just talk about it. So the cycles, as you guys know, buyer's market one, that is going down, buyer's market two, that is at the bottom, seller's market one, that is going up, and seller market two, which is at the top. Okay, so my suggestion is that since we know that we are in buyer markets one, that is going down, so in order to protect yourself, you can underwrite it at 15%. But there are a lot of other moving parts that you have to consider. But this is a one that you can use. Okay. Okay, this is my last slide. So here I have the abbreviation and definitions that I use in this presentation. Just I put them in one page just in case I use the abbreviation that I didn't talk about it in detail what it is. So I have it on this page. Okay. Just want to thank you for listening to watching this presentation. One thing that I'm going to suggest, please be in the game. I think that there is going to be a great opportunity next 2 years and beyond. Be in the game, play the game. If you have a coach, please talk to your coach and have a good conversation. These days is very important to be what is going on. If you do not have a coach, just call the office and get a coach. And I want to wish you best. And looking forward to talk to you or see you in one of the events, hopefully when it opens up, or talk to you at some time. Thank you and wish you best. Bye-bye. Hi, Jermaine.
Faradun, how you doing?
I'm doing great. How about yourself?
I'm doing fantastic.
Okay.
Great job on the presentation. I learned a lot.
Thank you so much.
I know I've been doing some things. I got to change some things on the underwriting for students. So I'm glad that you were you explained that to me and helped me out. So I really, truly appreciate that. I know a lot of people appreciate it also. Are you ready to take some calls?
Absolutely.
All right, so we have some people on the line right now. So we're going to start with Bill. Bill, you were on sharpening your skills with Faradun. How you doing today, Bill? Bill, you got to unmute yourself. Bill, hit the unmute button.
There we go. Hi, Jermaine.
Hi, how you doing?
I'm fine. I'm sorry. Can you repost or tell the cap rate website again? I wasn't able to get that down. You mentioned it in the latter part of like slide 7 or 8 or something of that nature. There was a cap rate site.
Sure. Yeah. Hi, Bill. This is Faradun. Let me just give you. Just you go to Google and Google it. Just write this that I'm going to just say. So just call CBRE. C is Charlie, B as boy, R as Robert, E as Edward. CBRE, cap rate survey.
Okay.
Just you Google it, you get to a website. There is the cap rates are available basically online. You can use it online, or just you can get the whole report. It is a large report. There are 4 pages of it is for multifamily because the cap rate that they provide, the CBRE provides, it is for all kinds of properties. It is for hotels, for office, for medical office, for tons of stuff. Just for multifamily, that's what I'm interested. I just get it.
Sure.
Another thing that I want just to say, CBRE publishes this report twice per year. So what I do is that basically probably in February and August, 2 months after that the year is passed and half of the year is passed. So that is the time that approximately the new version comes out. Right now, the cap rate report is second half of 2019. So when you go there, you will see it. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. And thank you. And if I may have one more, Jermaine, and then I'll stop and listen.
Go ahead.
So thank you so much. Good to see you again, Jermaine. You're
You
looking
too,
well.
Bill. Good to
Hey,
good to
so
hear you, Bill.
yeah, absolutely. Jermaine, I'm still been at it. I've been working hard. I've been underwriting. So this is a great information that you've shared with us today. So I agree with you, what you said earlier, that the next few years are going to create opportunities. For those of us that are still trying to finalize their first property, if I find a property that really underwrites well, both on the front end with the Trinity and on the back end as far as cash returns to the investors, um, are those really the metrics that I need to take to possible investors to get them to consider a property, or should I wait for 6 months or so until things begin to settle down a little bit?
Good question.
So can I say something? Okay, so let me just say a few things. Is that first of all, when you underwrite, you are going to have a cash-on-cash return for your investors from day one. So it's not something that they're going to get later. As you know, we have three centers for us. One is the acquisition fee that you get, you and your sponsor. And then there is a cash flow that you split it between you and your investors. For example, if you get 30% carve out, you get 30% of the cash flow and your investors get 70%. And then when you sell it after maybe 3 to 5 years, and maybe in this environment to add a couple of more years, when you sell it, then you split the equity between yourself and the investors. So you can just, you can split the equity also 30-70, 30% to you and 70% to investors. You can do that, or you can have a different split, whatever that you choose. So just I wanted that, that is just the mechanism of the way that we operate, that you know. The other thing is that my suggestion is that to be in the game. Right now, all of the markets are going down. So still the prices might not have come down because we are just into this about a month and a half or two. So still also the collections have been good because the government has been helping all the, the tenants, and all of that. So the collection has been good. So the prices might not drop, right away, and it's not dropping as I can see. So you need to be in the game, talking to your brokers, establish the basically, relationship with the brokers. When the things come, just then you can take advantage of it.
So we have Edwin came back, so I'm gonna allow him to jump in. Edwin, you were on sharpening your skills with Faradun. How you doing today, Edwin?
Hi, Edwin.
Hello, Faradun.
How are you?
The best coach ever. I mean, my goodness gracious. Jermaine, great to see you. Thank you for putting this together.
No problem.
And thanks for responding to my question earlier in the week. Faradun,
yes,
just real quick, looking at the Marcus and Millichap reports that came out in February, rating all the major, large and smaller cities, how accurate do you think that's going to be going forward? Dave said the other day on a call that looking at cities that were primarily service-oriented cities, that they're going to probably suffer the most. But people that are in healthcare and that kind of thing, that those are probably going to be the cities that are going to be the least effective.
I agree with that. So one thing is that any reports that came prior to COVID, those are not useful because all of those were that if the economy is going to just continue. So any report that we have just to ignore them because those are, nobody predicted that the COVID is coming. Right now, because of the COVID, basically all the game is changed. So that is true. What Dave has said, any market that are service economy, so those are probably are going to be hit. And also from a property class point of view, the C properties are going to be hit most probably more than, B properties.
Right.
So if anything that is related to health, related to bioscience, those things we know that are going to be strong going forward. Because when we come out of this, even when we come out of this, the country is going to go after the help to fix this, so we don't have this in the future. That's I think that makes sense that way. Another thing that I want us to say, any market that you go, if Amazon has a footprint or Walmart has a footprint, those guys are hiring. So just keep that also in mind.
All right. So Edwin is gone. So let's talk to my friend I'm assuming this is my friend in Texas. Roy, how you doing? You're on with Sharpening Your Skills with Faradun. How are you today, Roy?
I'm doing good. How about y'all?
Good.
Okay. It's been a while, and it's good to see familiar faces and everything. So thank you for that.
Welcome.
Just a quick question. I'd like for Fairdoom to review the Fannie Mae 6-month to 18-month reserve. You had mentioned to put it in the tool in the closing other, but then you said, well, don't count it as a raise. And then you said, well, the folks are going to give it back to you. I'm a little confused as to how that process is going to work. Can you?
Okay, sure. So thanks a lot for the question, Roy. Yeah, so Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, these are the agency lenders.
Mm-hmm.
The requirement is 6 months to 18 months of just the debt service, and also they want insurance and basically PITI, okay, insurance and taxes. So depending on the size of your loan, it could be 6 months, it could be 12 months, or could be 18 months. So that is something that you want based on where your property is, the size of the loan. You want to talk to your mortgage broker like Eric Stewart. If you don't have Eric Stewart, do you know Eric Stewart by any chance?
Oh, yes.
Okay, so you can ask him based on your property, it's going to be 6, 12, or 18 months. So that is one thing. The other thing is that you have to have this money up front in order to get you the loan these days, okay? However, when you get so if you have to have this money up front, you have to raise that money. Where do you put it in our underwriting? We are going to put that money into our closing cost other. Closing cost other has a lot of components. Just I'm going to say a few of them, for example. One is that if you are going to syndicate, you need to have the syndication fee. If you are going to upgrade anything, so you have to have you have to have some money for the properties that you make ready, that you want to fix some of the properties, you need to have money there. So, so there are quite a few items. Have you gone through the immersion training by any chance?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
So there is a page in your manual, just you go there and just go through them. However, since the COVID came, basically we have to add 1 year of, for example, 1 year of debt service. So, however, so this is, you need to add it, and it is, you put it in the closing cost order, and then your underwriting is going to calculate how much your total raise, the total money that you want to get from your investors. So that is what is going to happen. Now, after 12 months, actually there is a requirement that after 12 months, you have to have a certain DCR, debt coverage ratio. If you maintain different certain DCR, then the lender might give you back this reserve that you have given. So that is what I was saying, that if you, for example, after a year, you get that DCR, that reserve back from the lender, what to do with it. So you have two choices I mentioned. One is that you can return it to your investors. That is one way. And then another way would be is that if you plan to do something with the property, upgrade, or whatever that you need to do the property, you can do that. However, whatever that you need to do, you have to decide upfront what your intent is, and you have to put it in your syndication document, basically your syndication attorney will help you with all of this. You have to put it there. So you have to say upfront what your intention is, and then you go ahead and implement. Does that answer your question?
Yes, and that was the piece. I was trying to take notes while you were talking through it, and that was the piece that I missed on what do I do with that, and is it included into the document if I syndicate? And
Yeah.
one last thing, Jermaine. How about them Cowboys? I'm done.
Is that it?
I'm done, brother. Thank you. Thank you.
All right, then, Roy. Enjoy, buddy.
Thanks a lot, Roy.
Thank
you. All right. That is the end, Faradun. We really appreciate you taking this time. I can't take all the credit for this. There's a lot of people behind the scenes who are making this happen, including Dave and Jeff and Jeannie. And then with the help of Faradun and Chad last week. I mean, we're trying to make this happen. We're trying to get you guys some really relevant information. Today was freaking fantastic. So I really appreciate you taking the time to do this, Faradun. We want to make sure that we're presenting some good materials to our mentorship and mastermind students, because you know they're the backbone of RE Mentor. So thank you very much, Faradun, for doing this, and hopefully we can do this again sometime.
Okay, thank you so much. I wish everybody best, especially next couple of years, and we'll talk to you guys soon.
Thank you, guys. Have a good one. Bye-bye.